So before we begin this morning, I want to check in and see how everybody is doing. And I want you to answer this one little question. How you doing? So put on the side in the chat how you're really feeling. Happy Friday to everyone. And we also are honoring our Hispanic Heritage Month, our Latinx Heritage Month. Thank you. I'm glad, hopeful. I'm wonderful. Wonderful. I love it. I love it. You guys are pumping me up. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, great. Great. Yes. Wonderful. Keep them coming because your emotions can dictate how you experience today's workshop. So as you're putting in how you're feeling, I invite you to focus solely on today's materials and really, really experience your day through the lens of your craft, your educational hat. And I want you to focus on transforming your art because this is where we are today. We're recrafting, we're reimagining, we're having to transform the way we educate because we are educators in a changing world, embracing cultural differences, and today we're doing it in a virtual environment. And by reading some, I can see, there's enough fear around online teaching to last us all a lifetime. Do some of these comments sound familiar to you? I'm not qualified to teach online. What if my students don't end up learning what I'm teaching? As with everything, teaching online is and can be a little scary and frightening. And it can be polarizing. I want us to use that chat box again. I so appreciate all of you telling me how you're feeling this morning. And believe me, I'm taking all that in consideration. But can you just spend a few seconds, like, what are your fears regarding virtual instruction? Okay? I need to check in with you. Okay? Yes. What are your fears regarding virtual instructions? Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, they're coming in. I hear you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And I'll be sharing the summary. Excellent. Yes. It's those times, those uncertain times. We have a lot of feelings and emotions going on. I appreciate what you're saying. Oh, I love it. Great. Wow. Yes. Well, for those of you who can't see all the chats, let me just share thank you and summarize some of them, but keep them coming because I do want to be able to address them throughout our morning together. So after reading some of your responses, and thank you again for those of you who share in the chat box and, don't stop. I would like to address a few of your concerns. Okay. All right. I see them. Okay, great. One of the responses mentioned that their fears centered around the fact that technology enhanced learning restricts personal interaction. And I'm kind of paraphrasing. Many of you listed that as a concern. In response to this, many argue that the use of technology in learning was never meant to be an affront to conventional teaching, and that the use of technology in learning remains as an effort to unleash the academic, empower the student, enhance the learner journey, and extend access to those who would previously be denied. Another fear that was mentioned in the chat was the actual fear of, being able to successfully teach and engage our students online. With that, I would like to say it's important for us to remember that our students are also afraid of what to expect in an online classroom. There's a lot of fear around teaching because of the authority and responsibility that goes along with it. So now that we're doing it online, of course, we are really to display authority to the world. We're like staking our flag into the ground and saying, I'm so expert on this subject and you can trust me to teach it to you. This can be very frightening also. But if someone calls us out on our claim to be the knowledgeable one or the one with the answers, the one that should listen and believe, what if someone calls us out on not being culturally aware, culturally sensitive? What if it's all been a big show we're putting on and we're not really as knowledgeable as we like to be? We're not really the one that has all the answers. And maybe we're not the culturally competent educator that we may portray ourselves to be. Uh-oh, I hope I didn't step on any toes or expose any of our secrets. But we are exposed, okay? And we don't have the right equipment sometimes. We don't know what to do. And on top of that, the responsibility of it all. The responsibility to make sure that the students who invest in our knowledge, especially our underrepresented, who may be investing everything in their education, and we're there in front of them. They're looking for a return on their investment. It's difficult for us. I know some of us have old machines. Some of us are trying to discover what to do and how to adjust. It all adds up. Our fears can perpetuate inaction though. And it's worse, and at its worst, can prevent us from truly showing up for our students. We can't truly make an impact if we're not fully solid on the idea of who we are first, which includes not only facing our fears, all those fears we just looked at, but our prejudices, our biases, our isms. We can't teach effectively face-to-face or in a hybrid model, and now virtually, unless we learn to truly be there for our students, even with our fears and regardless of our differences. The more we can eliminate our fears, address them, the more we will become our authentic selves. So I want to just take a moment to have us just embrace that. I've read a lot of your fears and your concerns, and they're very, very valid. But we need to also allow ourselves to feel that vulnerability. And one of you mentioned online about feeling vulnerable, teaching online, especially during these times of coronavirus and all the social unrest. These are real feelings. Not having recommendations for online resources and platforms, not having updated equipment, being concerned with equity issues, not knowing where to locate emotional support for our students and our underrepresented students. We need to be sure our students have their fears acknowledged also. We need to focus on their mental health along with their physical health, especially with COVID, and especially their inability to possibly meet the needs that we're going to put upon them because of technology issues. These are real feelings. We want more materials about equity. We need more instruction on how we can look at the intersectionality now of, unfortunately, the COVID pandemic and our social justice and our upcoming election. Now, we're not going to get into politics today, I promise you. But not knowing what the best practices are for distance learning, especially for underrepresented populations and our population that we serve in our community colleges, especially since we're very close to San Diego. We have a lot of students where English is not their first language. We need to be comfortable with trying to find ways to meet the needs of all of our students. It can be very interesting to find out that we may not know a lot about working with our students with special needs, our students with disabilities, who are now our online students. Our world of instruction is no longer a face-to-face interaction, where it was easy for us, or at least some of us, to facilitate small group and large group dialogues. Our world of instruction is no longer a face-to-face conversation where we can have a group sit together and really develop some sort of class project or teach from that perspective. Our world of instruction is no longer a recycling of so important or tried and true, but I've never, been using anything but this, or my lecture notes that I've always had, I've held on to, similar to Linus's security blanket in Charlie Brown. To those of you who might not know what I'm talking about, let's increase our own cultural knowledge about one of America's cultural icons. Just like Linus, we got so comfortable and accustomed to always relying on our experiences, that security blanket, or what we've done in the past. We've done it, we know it's good, I'm comfortable with it. But Linus, he carries his blanket through thick and thin, would not never let it go. We may want to look at letting go of that blanket. Put it on a new jacket, new blouse, new dashiki, new whatever is you, because this is not the case anymore. We have to be in tune to what's happening in our students' environment. We should understand that every student does not have the privilege to have an empty space where they can close off and go into a room and learn. They are struggling at home, trying to get the work done. Right now, during COVID, students do not have the ability to go to the library or to the Starbucks or another public space where there's free Wi-Fi to do their homework. Ourselves, we're working from home. We may have children running around. Myself, I have a little puppy that's running around my feet as we speak now, tugging at my shoes. But also, a lot of students from historically underrepresented communities, come from households where they are the first in their families. The first in their families to attend college. They don't always get a lot of information from their parents or their siblings about what college is like. They often get that information from their friends and their classmates. Now it's even harder for them to build a community on campus. They are truly navigating it on their own. And a lot of them feel a lack of confidence. They need a lot of support and guidance and connection. And they feel like it is more difficult to get this in an online arena now. A lot of you spoke about that in your chat, that I have a lack of confidence because I'm not quite sure of the technology. I'm not quite sure how to do a few things. So we're going to get to that in our afternoon sessions, but this morning I'm going to give you a couple of things that we can do. But getting back to the needs of our diverse student population, not only are our students faced with some of the things I just mentioned, but now just imagine the same student who tried to navigate the physical landscape of the college environment, where we're visiting offices before, where they needed services. Now all of those services are virtual. And we know a lot of our students, they require, and we're there to provide them with extra support to help them. Well, you take this here, then you go over there, those steps. We walk them through those steps a lot of times. Sometimes we handhold when necessary. We must create experiences, even though it's still online, that are conducive to their own sense of belonging to our campus. We have an opportunity to create those environments really in our online classes. We have that ability. Okay, so I want us to take a moment just to embrace the conditions that we're in now, that we're faced with, not only ourselves, but our students. And believe it or not, that's the thing that's going to bring us all together. We're all facing the unknown, some fear, some anxiety. So I would like for you to get into yourself a little bit, if you don't mind. I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. Are you consciously being, let's say, grateful and caring with yourself and concerned with the way you plan to teach your online courses this fall? When I'm talking about being grateful, I'm talking about appreciating your level of privilege and also frustration when the course isn't maybe going the way it's planned, and try not to focus on what you can't change, but actually focus on what you can control, your classroom. Continue to be caring. Caring is like understanding and acknowledging that we don't have all the answers. And to be okay with providing additional layers of support, not only for our students, but to also get them for ourselves. And being concerned, meaning knowing that our students are, again, experiencing similar struggles. And they're concerned, your concerns and their concerns are probably similar. Another question I want you to think about, are you or will you be constantly grateful or caring and concerned with the way you accept students' responses to course content and experiences? Is your course content understood by the students? Are you making sure that it will be? Are we going to possibly take off that Linus blanket and try something different? Are you recording your lectures? Are you creating or thinking about creating engaging in opportunities where students can experience working with others through your discussion boards or small groups where they can connect? Are you going to challenge yourself to course correct when we don't receive the positive feedback that we often get, but maybe we get a couple of negative feedbacks from our students saying different things? How are we going to respond to that? Remember, many of our students from historically underrepresented communities, they may be dealing with many different home life situations while trying to maintain their focus on the course. There are a myriad of reasons why the students aren't focused. Maybe they are missing assignments or struggling on a test, or they may even be embarrassed to share with you why. If this occurs, let's encourage them to come to you for support. Because at the end of the day, their goal is to finish their coursework and pass your class, regardless of the obstacles that arise, not only for you, but for them. We should try to communicate that to our students, telling them regardless of the challenges, your efforts are appreciated. We want to continue to acknowledge them. We want to encourage them to perform better. And we're going to become their cheerleader in that virtual classroom. We can display empathy by creating rational rituals before checking in on the assignments that we expect our students to turn in. Like, for example, similar to what we did this morning, you can encourage some of your students to share one tough moment and maybe one hopeful moment of the day. Or you and the students can share one lesson you've learned about yourselves this last weekend or last night or this morning. Just to begin to show some relation development there. Because by participating in these sharing opportunities, it can help us build and maintain connection despite the difference, the distance. Remember, every single student in your class is going through something. Our thoughts shouldn't be on whose struggles are the worst. All of them are struggling. So we have to really think about what is the message that we want our students to receive from us. How are we providing that environment in our virtual class? Again, it starts with us. We have to go the extra mile now more than ever, especially as we're preparing our classes and reaching out to our students virtually. So how can we really address these cultural differences in the online classroom? How are we going to do this? Well, now that we are generally aware that the first steps in managing our online instruction is to recognize our own fears, as we mentioned in the chat, our vulnerabilities. And being aware that fear and vulnerability is also being felt to some degree by the students we serve, with particular acknowledgement of the additional stressors experienced by our culturally diverse students. Since everyone is a product of their own culture, we need to increase both our self-awareness and our cross-cultural awareness. There's no one book of instructions to deal with cultural diversity, nor is there one recipe to follow, but the certain attitudes that we have and that we bring to the online instructional environment can help to bridge the different cultures. It's our attitudes. What are we bringing to the online instructional environment? It does start with us. So how do we address this cultural difference in the online classroom? Well, the first thing maybe is admit that we don't know. We don't know everything. Admit that maybe a situation doesn't make sense. Maybe they want to talk about the Breonna Taylor situation, the COVID spread on our campuses, us having to come back to work, some of us, being afraid of what's really going on in America with our politics and our election coming up. But admit that we may not understand why all these things are happening. We may not be able to make sense of it. But we don't want to have our assumptions, which may be wrong, be a part of our process of addressing students' fears, vulnerabilities, and assumptions. We want to be able to focus on the similarities and not our differences. Secondly, maybe one thing we can do is suspend our judgments. Collect as much information as possible so that you can describe situations accurately before evaluating them. When you're looking at discussion boards or you're reading your students' assignments, make sure that our own judgments are bleeding into how we are reading and evaluating a student's response or discussion board. Let's continue to check ourselves. Third, practice empathy. We've all taught before, most of us, and whether it's face-to-face, but we always felt that empathy was important. Like, in order to understand another person, we needed to try to stand in their shoes. Even though we're speaking and working with them virtually, this is very, very important because our students still need to feel some validation of what they're going through also and their struggles. So now through empathy, we learned how other people would like to be treated also. So again, we're still developing a connection with our students by showing some of these attributes and characteristics in our dealings with them virtually. We need to systematically check, again, our assumptions. We need to ask our colleagues, get some feedback about, am I being this way or that way when I'm reading this particular discussion board response from this student? Continue to check ourselves and become comfortable with ambiguity, meaning that the more complicated and uncertain life is, the more we tend to seek control. I'm gonna say that one more time, because some of us mentioned us not feeling in control. And we know that the more complicated and uncertain life is, which is truly 2020 has shown us, we have a tendency as human beings to want to take control of the situation, control it. But we also, in doing that, as an innate response, we want to make sure that there's other people who have the same resources as we do, and that their way can add to what we already know. So we want to assume that other people are as resourceful as we are, and we want to welcome their knowledge and information too. When we're still trying to control this environment, let's let some other people in, okay? Because if we always do what we've always done, we will always get what we always got. Another thing we need to do also is celebrate diversity. As we're teaching, we know that in November, it's Native American Heritage Month. We can find ways in our virtual classrooms. And even now up until October 15, continuing to celebrate Latinx Heritage Month and awareness, we can infuse those things in our classroom. Find ways of sharing the cultures of your diverse students. Make our courses culturally relevant. It is important that we ensure that the information we provide to students is digestible. As another tip, is digestible, okay? Moving to remote learning and having fewer direct interactions, it can make assignments feel more overwhelming and daunting, particularly when several directions are given at once. Okay, in one-on-one, sometimes we can repeat it really quickly, but sometimes, especially now that we're going to online teaching, we need to be able to break directions down into smaller bites, when necessary. And we want to encourage our students to ask clarifying questions when and if it appears they don't understand. Now, we know a lot of our students, especially from different cultures, asking a professor something is disrespectful, is seen as challenging authority. We may have to use a variety of techniques to let our students know it's okay to ask me something. Maybe they want me to say, email me if you don't want to mention something in the discussion board, but I'm available during these times, these days. Please email me so that we can go over more of the assignment. We have to let our students know and invite them into our space so that some of the fears can be broken down. In shifts to distant learning, we will need to actively focus on maintaining attitudes of inclusivity. We have to be inclusive. Now more than ever, students should feel valued and welcomed regardless of their background or identity. In working with students from different cultural backgrounds, we should let relationships be the focus. Now, it is important to ensure our students understand and have structure, and we hold them to high expectations, yes. But we want to ensure our students know that we care about their well-being just as much as their behavior and assignment compliance. Now, in addition to instructional strategies, the systems, some of you mentioned about some of your systems you are working with are kind of antiquated and struggling with some of the technology, which I have to admit, I'm one of those too. Now, the systems that our students enter needs to be also culturally responsive as well. Learning management systems and their online structures need to be just as diverse as the cultures that they serve. The typical paradigm of reading and doing, okay, that many online courses have needs to change. We are in danger of replicating a system for the online world that has not served all students in the brick and mortar world. So if the style of learning online is not as diverse as the students, then the powerful technology that is used in online is useless. We need to ensure that we continue to receive training in these tools and skills, the tools and the skills that it takes to interact with our students, especially our students from diverse populations, especially as more and more students will have to take online courses. Our students have cultural strengths and resiliencies. We need to remember that at all times. We have those strengths. We have those resiliencies. The only difference between them and us is maybe the color of our skin, maybe the zip code we live in, maybe the language we speak, maybe the God we serve or not serve. Maybe it's the person we love, the type of food we eat, the way we see the world. But we still are all human. And we don't want to be looked at as being, you're different, so that means you're less than. Or because you're speaking another language, that means you may not be as smart. We need to continue to check ourselves because it starts with us, how we see teaching students, no matter where they're from, no matter what they look like, no matter what culture is before that hyphenated American, because we all are American. And what does that really mean? So we need to continue to go back to the times when we first decided teaching is something that I want to do. It's something that I was called to do. Remember that time? Does anybody remember that time? Just for a few seconds in the chat box, could anybody remember that first time, the excitement of, I want to teach. I love teaching. Does anybody remember that? Does anybody want to confess they remember that? Or maybe you were forced to do it. But I just wanted to do this and see some of your responses because we need to go back sometimes to that passion where we would provide our students with anything and everything that we had to meet their learning need. We didn't just have one way. We had the one way out of the book. We had another way using go outside and do something. We had another way where we wanted them to just reflect on something at home and come back and tell us about it through chat or through face-to-face. We had an arsenal of tools that we used when we first started out. We didn't focus on whether the student was Asian, Latinx, LGBTQ, African American, African, white, immigrant, non-immigrant, first generation, not, rich, poor. We taught all of our students and met each of their needs by being flexible, by being understanding, by being confident, by having empathy. If the computer didn't work or the book was broken, we were creative. We allowed ourselves to be creative and not get stuck on machinery all the time and technology all the time. We wanted to use and continue to use our creativity. We need to bring that back to the online class, and we can do that. Some of us aren't comfortable with being in front of the camera and talking to people. I'm raising my hand, but it's something we need to do right now. But still let yourself shine through and permeate through those waves. Have those students still feel your commitment, feel your energy, and feel your mistakes and own them. Let the students assist. I know at times when I'm teaching my classes online and I'll misstep in a pronunciation of something, when someone say, well, no, doc, I want, say this. Oh, my bad, I'm sorry. What should I say instead? There's no shame in doing that because we are growing, just like they are growing. Our world is growing and changing. Are we going to change and grow with it? Are we going to stay the same way we were yesterday? Are we going to pick up that blanket again, remember Linus, and carry it with us no matter what? Or are we going to step out? Step out once again like we stepped out when we first started this journey. Let the blanket slip down, even if it's slowly, off the shoulder. Pick up new skills. Be more open to more. During these very, very uncertain times, always remember your commitment to teach, your commitment to encourage, your commitment to instruct, your commitment to mentor, your commitment to praise, cheer, your commitment to influence, your commitment to guide, and your commitment to inspire. Now let's go get them online. With that, I want to thank you for the time, and I would like to open up for some questions. I know there may be some questions that anyone would like to share, but I wanted to just open up your morning with some words of encouragement. Even though we are very, very, uneasy with technology. And I tell you, you should have seen me trying to get on with you today. Everything was going crazy with my computer. But we still can do it because we are resilient. And we've committed ourselves to making the lives of the people that we serve and teach better. Again, I thank you for your time and your listening, and I look forward to seeing you all in one of the breakout sessions where we'll be speaking about using cultural competency in online teaching. So thank you all.